His hands were shaking more than mine, which, considering I was the one holding the needle, said more than a little about the night we were about to share. The fluorescent lights hummed above the emergency triage bay, casting a soft, sterile glow that made the linoleum floor look like a sea of tiny mirrors. I could smell the faint antiseptic perfume that always lingers after a deep cleaning. Sharp, clean, almost like a promise that everything will be put right again. He was a 30-something man in a faded denim jacket, his eyes darting between the clock on the wall and the chart perched on the metal stand. He'd come in with a splintered wrist after a night of too much enthusiasm at a rooftop concert, and now he was trying to convince himself that the pain was just a reminder that he was still alive. He laughed, but the laugh didn't reach the corners of his mouth. It was the kind of nervous chuckle you hear when someone's about to step off a curb without looking. "Okay," I said, my voice low enough that it felt like a secret we were sharing over a late-night cup of tea. "Let's get you a little something to take the edge off." I slipped my latex gloves on, feeling the familiar snap as the powder-coated them settled against my skin. The gloves warmed quickly, a thin barrier that reminded me how much of medicine is about touch, about the way a fingertip can find a vein, can feel the subtle pulse that tells a story of its own. I asked him to roll up his sleeve, and he did so with a sigh that seemed to release a little of the tension coiled in his shoulders. The skin of his forearm was pale, the veins faint, like riverbeds after a dry season. I could see the faint outline of the brachial vein, just a shade darker than the surrounding tissue, and I knew that's where I'd aim. The trick, as my mentor always said, is to let the patient's muscles relax. A tense muscle is a restless river, and the needle will only find the calm water if the current is still. "Take a deep breath," I whispered, and he obeyed, inhaling through his nose and exhaling through his mouth, the sound soft, almost a sigh. I could feel the slight tremor in his hand ease, the way his fingers unclenched a little. I placed my thumb on the skin, feeling for that subtle give as the vein rose under my touch. The skin was cool, the room a little warmer, and the contrast made the moment feel almost intimate, like a dance where each step is measured, each movement deliberate. I lifted the syringe, an 80-milligram vial of morphine, a small, clear cylinder that promised relief. I angled the needle at about 30 degrees, the perfect tilt to glide through the skin and into the vein without catching on the surrounding tissue. The moment the bevel met the skin, there was a faint pop, a whisper of puncture that seemed louder than the hum of the lights. I watched the tiny flash of blood rise in the hub, a crimson sign that the vein had welcomed the needle. "Now," I said, "I'm going to push the medicine in slowly. It's like a conversation. Don't rush it. Let it settle." I pressed the plunger gently, feeling the resistance give way as the morphine slipped into his bloodstream. The sensation of the fluid moving, the way the needle's tip seemed to disappear into the vein, was strangely soothing. It reminded me of how a well-placed stitch can calm a wound, how a calm voice can steady a racing heart. He let out a breath that was half relief, half disbelief. That actually feels nice," he murmured, his voice tinged with a shy grin. I smiled back, feeling a little thrill at the way his eyes lingered on mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. There was a flicker of something, maybe gratitude, maybe the simple human connection that forms when one person trusts another with a piece of their body. I took a moment to check the site, making sure the needle was still snug, the skin intact. Then I withdrew the needle, applying gentle pressure with a sterile cotton swab, watching the little bead of blood that escaped, then dry. I placed a small adhesive bandage over the spot, a tiny bright square that seemed to declare the battle had been won. "What's next?" he asked, his tone lighter now, as if the pain had been a curtain that had just been drawn back. "Do I get a badge for surviving the night?" I laughed, a soft sound that seemed to echo off the walls. "No badge, but you do get a tip. Keep that arm elevated for a while, and avoid heavy lifting for the next 24 hours. And if you ever feel a fever creeping up, temperature above 132 degrees Fahrenheit, reach for a cool compress, sip water, and let your body do its thing. Fever is just the body's way of saying, 'I'm fighting,' and a little rest goes a long way." He nodded, his shoulders relaxed now, the earlier tremor gone. I could see the faint smile playing on his lips, the way his eyes softened, and for a moment I thought about how many stories I'd heard in these corridors. Stories of broken bones, broken hearts, and the quiet moments where a simple injection could feel like a promise of safety. Medicine, after all, is as much about listening as it is about treating. As I helped him up, our fingers brushed for a split second, skin against latex, a fleeting contact that felt oddly comforting. He thanked me, his voice a little huskier now, as if the morphine had already begun its gentle work. I returned his gratitude with a warm smile, feeling the lingering heat of his hand as it left my glove. The night shift rolled on, the hallway lights flickering like distant stars. I moved on to the next patient, a grandmother with a stubborn cough, and the rhythm of the evening continued, each breath, each pulse, each whispered reassurance weaving together into the tapestry of the night. When I finally stepped out into the quiet parking lot, the air was crisp, the scent of rain on pavement rising from the concrete. I paused, looking back at the hospital's silhouette against the moonlit sky, and let the memory of that small, intimate exchange settle in my chest. It's funny how a needle, a simple piece of glass, can become a bridge between two strangers, one offering relief, the other receiving trust. I tuck the night's story into the folds of my mind, a gentle reminder that caring for someone else can feel like holding a fragile secret, a whisper of kindness that lingers long after the bandage is peeled away. And as I walk toward my car, the soft click of my shoes on the wet asphalt sounded like a quiet promise. Tomorrow, I'll be here again, ready to listen, ready to heal, ready to find that quiet, steady rhythm between fear and comfort.